Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I, 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I am also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. The pregnancy has been very hard. I have horrible morning sickness that reached a really bad point where I passed out and hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. They were evicted, and I don't know why. One room was my office was tossed into our room, papers everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. It was like a light flipped and my husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine then. You should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. I woke up and went to get a drink of water. And I couldn't as every glass we owned is scattered around the house. They didn't clean a single thing. I passive-aggressively started to pick up the dirty dishes and wash them. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when their kids were crying nonstop, banging on the walls, so on. Their mom was in her room for hours ignoring them. When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with her kids when she was tired, then continued to complain how nothing was done in the house while he was at work all day. Yep, the same house he didn't clean. That led to a fight where I told him, I am sick to have company and they need to leave. To which he replied, they are his family, and he won't kick them out. I started to cry again. I was beyond frustrated, exhausted. I physically couldn't do it anymore. So I called my mom asking if I could come stay with her, telling her the whole story in front of my husband, who at this point was completely shocked, angry. Also, I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. My mom came with my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. My super angry mom told my husband, since your family can stay, so can we. My mom then quickly took charge. I was sent to bed while my brothers started cleaning, complaining loudly at how disgusting my brother-in-law's family is, along with what a horrible husband my husband is for putting me through this while I am sick. Later, I got a text message from my mother-in-law calling me an a-hole for not helping my husband clean up the house and putting my brother-in-law in an uncomfortable position by having my mom boss him around. Now for the top comments. Wait, your mother-in-law called to fuss at you for involving your mother? There's this pot kettle thing. Not the a-hole 1000%. Put house guests in a shared home require 2 yeses and only 1 no. Both of you agree or it shouldn't happen. Your husband has treated you abominably. I'm not sure I could deal with that honestly. Can you go stay with your mom? I agree with the 2 yeses, but I wasn't even asked to say no. Which is a huge sign of disrespect and a major red flag. Does he do this a lot? Does he actively treat you like a partner? Or does he just decide things and you go along to keep the peace? This will not get better, OP, if you don't set some major boundaries. Again, that he did this while you were in the hospital suggests he knew you didn't agree and wanted to present it as a done deal you couldn't/wouldn't argue with. Go stay with mom and let him enjoy lying in the filthy bed he's made. And honestly tell him that you're not coming back until they're gone, and your house is as clean as when you left it. If he won't or can't, then you know where his priorities are. You're pregnant. The house you describe is unfit to bring a newborn into. Depending on how bad and what country you live in, Child Protective Services could step in. Is your marriage worth potentially losing custody of your baby over? Because I can tell you right now that it shouldn't be. That baby has to be your #1 priority, and living in a house full of dirty dishes and moldy food ain't it, sis. My heart hurts for you. You deserve so much better. He has always been very respectful. It was like his switch went off, and he's no longer acting like the loving person I know when he's around his brother. I know this may be hard to hear, but I don't think this is about his brother. You're now pregnant with his child and tied to him forever. This is when a lot of abusers show their true colors. It's time for you to start thinking about exit strategies. Not the a-hole. In fact, I think you were underreacting, which is understandable considering your current health. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister listen to her daughter scream? My 33 female sister Marnie, 35 female, has a 3-year-old daughter Annabelle. I love my niece very, very much, but Marnie sets down no boundaries for her. Everything Annabelle does is age-appropriate, but as a parent, it's your job to help your child become the best person they can be. When Annabelle doesn't want to do something or needs to get her way, she screams. It's very, very loud and hard to ignore, so Marnie and her husband would instantly give in. As a mom of 4, I completely understand it's hard to hear your child cry or be upset. And sometimes, yes, absolutely pick your battles, but others, the toddler can't win. Around the holidays, Marnie and I hung out a lot with the kids. At one point, we were headed to an aquarium. Marnie started going one way and Annabelle started screaming. Marnie turns around and heads in a direction that'll add 15 minutes to our route. When I asked why, she said that Annabelle likes passing a certain landmark on her way. However, Annabelle then started screaming she didn't want to see it. And halfway there we turned around. It added more time and my kids were annoyed. I let most of this go as Annabelle is not my child. It isn't my vehicle nor house where these predicaments take place. But then Marnie broke her leg while her husband was out of town and she needed help getting around and tending to Annabelle. So I agreed they should stay with us. Last night, we pick up our kids from school, stopping at Annabelle's preschool last. Once we finally get her in the car, she didn't want to leave and Marnie let her just run around for 10 minutes and wouldn't let me grab her because she's the boss of her body. I'm exhausted. I still have to get home and cook. As I'm heading in one direction, Annabelle starts screaming for me to go in the other. I calmly explain that way is longer and we don't have the time. Marnie asks me to just make it easier as she doesn't want to hear her scream. But going that way will add more time to our drive, so I say no again and kept driving, putting on some kid-friendly music while my kids are trying to distract Annabelle. Marnie starts crying, saying things like, "It's okay, baby. We'll be home soon. Oh, I know you're so sad." This isn't very nice. The thing is, Annabelle stopped screaming after 5 minutes when she realized she wasn't getting her way. Keep in mind, she never shed a tear, just screamed. Marnie later told me that I was horrible for forcing her to listen to her daughter scream. Asking wouldn't have been so hard to not add stress to her. My husband agrees that I did the right thing, but also pointed out Marnie and Annabelle are going through a stressful time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That poor kid apparently won't be learning appropriate behavior anytime soon. Yep, especially since anyone who teaches it to her will apparently be berated for making her scream. Annabelle needs to be taught good behavior immediately, and Marnie's doing a massive disservice to her child by refusing to parent her. As the saying goes, they can cry now or you can cry later. This won't get better as she gets older if Marnie keeps things this way. Only worse. Not the a-hole. It's your car, and you're not being paid to chauffeur her daughter around. When she drives, she picks the path home, and you kept mom. They can afford you the same respect. But you can't change how your sister parents her child. You can only distance yourself from the spoiled brat she's raising. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think people have some complete, inalienable right to parent their kids as incompetently as they like in their own nuclear family silo. Sooner or later, we're all accountable to a community. I'm also not one of those people on this website who seemingly gets off at the thought of berating a bratty child stranger in public. That's not what I mean. But the adults closest to this kid's misguided parents have a role in enforcing their own expectations, making it clear that this kid will have to learn to cope if she wants to function in settings outside her own home. Better that than this kid's underpaid stressed teachers trying to do it alone, with no support from any other adults, while Opie and other family keep a cold distance. Not the a-hole. Hopefully Marnie and her husband will learn to set healthy boundaries with Annabelle. Does Annabelle behave like this at preschool? Yep, there's been a lot of behavioral reports because she screams when told no, or clean up messes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing my baby to the hotel resort my brother was getting married in? My brother was getting married, and it was a child-free wedding per future sister-in-law's request. The wedding was out of state, so my husband and I were going to make it into a 3-day weekend. We had a sitter lined up months ago, but the day before we were set to leave, she had to cancel for a family emergency. We tried to find a last-minute sitter that we trusted and could also do just overnight but came up empty. I tried calling and texting my brother about the situation but couldn't get hold of him. We were both in the wedding party and I didn't want to leave my brother and his soon-to-be wife in bind, so I called my mother after that since I knew she was with them. I explained the situation and she said she'd call me back after talking to him. 4 hours passed and we didn't hear back from them, so we had to make a decision. And since we are currently sharing one vehicle, I couldn't really leave my husband and kid without a vehicle, and he had put a lot of money already into the wedding and trip, so we just took our baby with us. We got there later than we originally planned and just went to our room. The next afternoon was the wedding, and my husband and I planned to swap time out. I'd go to ceremony and part of the reception while he stayed with the baby, and he could attend the second half of the reception while I stayed with the baby. When the ceremony was over, and we were heading inside to the reception, my husband had the baby inside in her stroller. I joined my husband and went to say hello to some family members, and went with him to congratulate my brother and new sister-in-law. Husband said his hellos and congrats, then went back to our room with our child. I left the reception area a few times to bring my husband some small plates of food so he didn't have to wait for his turn to eat. And one of my trips back, my brother spoke with me about it being child-free wedding, and his wife was upset that my husband had a baby in the lobby and that I kept leaving the reception. I told him they can't be too upset because we didn't bring the baby into the wedding area or the reception. But the rest of the time I was at the reception, I kept getting comments from who I'm guessing were sister-in-law's family and her bridesmaids about how I was trying to steal her thunder by having my baby there. Sister-in-law kept asking why I didn't just leave them at home and would not accept my reason for not doing so. It's been a sore spot for my family and her all weekend. Am I an a-hole for bringing the baby with us? Info: the wedding ceremony itself was outside in a courtyard. It was not in a closed-off area. We had to go through the lobby area to get to the reception hall. My husband was in the lobby walking with the baby and getting coffee from the hotel shop. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Short of abandoning your child, what else were you supposed to do? Would have loved to hear sister-in-law's recommendation, likely requiring duct tape. Not the a-hole. Wait, you don't use duct tape on your kids? Not the a-hole. Excited to hear what magical solutions everyone had on offer. You were in the wedding party. You had a solid plan for everything. You showed up and did an amazing job under those circumstances. The magical solutions were 1. Leave my husband without a car while he was home with our baby. 2. Leave our child with a babysitter we didn't know for more than one night. 3. My husband languished in the hotel room for hours without eating before he could go downstairs to the reception, which held to the no on room service prices. And 4. Whoever was watching the baby just stay in the room. You forgot the solution where someone actually got back to you in a timely manner about you losing your sitter. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You and your husband did all you could to respect the child-free wedding, while also dealing with an unexpected sitter cancellation. You tried to reach out to someone in advance of the wedding, and did everything you could to not have the baby be the center of attention. The only piece that maybe stands out is the left the reception area a few times. But without knowing what kind of setup that was or how you left, it doesn't change my opinion. Last story. Am I the a-hole for hiding condiments from my wife and children? My wife more or less takes care of the house and kids. When I'm home, I take care of the honey-do list and do my part around the house. Before I got married, I lived with my roommates and never had any problems. We were all immature adults who respected each other's boundaries, and when we didn't, we accepted the repercussions. Now, our house has a large kitchen with lots of cupboards. Our pantry's under the basement stairs. My wife leaves just the basics in the kitchen cupboards. She says that everything we aren't going to use up that week can stay downstairs. I am the only person in my family that eats certain snacks, as neither my wife or kids like my stuff. So I ask for one shelf in the kitchen for my stuff, not one cupboard. 1 out of 3 shelves and 1 out of 11 cupboards. My wife agreed that was fair, and it has been that way since we bought the house. I get to keep soap, candy, and salty licorice where I can always find them, along with my personal balsamic vinegar and few other things. My cupboard isn't stuffed, but it's not particularly organized either. But I know it's there, so I can reach in and grab what I want. For the last few months, my family has decided that since my shelf isn't full, they can stuff whatever they want in there. For the most part, it consists a bunch of giant condiment packs from Costco. Stuff that belongs to the pantry. I've asked them not to do this, and I take the stuff down to the pantry. I am getting kind of sick of this. I started just pulling them out and leaving them on the counter, and they ended up back on my shelf. So now I hide them around the house. When they come looking for the salt, pepper, granulated garlic, garlic toast mix, or steak spice, I give them clues. Boy, I sure would be salty if I found that in the basement bathroom under the sink. Then they have to go dig it out from behind everything there. My wife says that she understands and that I can stop doing this. I agree, so I promised I would only do this stuff that wasn't mine that was on my single shelf. She said I was being an a-hole. I agree, but I don't think I'm alone in this. On the plus side, I don't have to hide half a gallon of vinegar in the garage now. Seems like I'm in the minority so far, but I think not the a-hole. Without much cupboard space and separate pantry, it would be very easy for them to just leave you your one shelf regardless of whether or not it is empty. It's not empty, it has my stuff on it. I don't know, man. Reading the absolute vitriol in the replies has me cracking up. I don't think it's that serious. She gave you spot for your stuff and is no longer respecting that space. Are you being a bit of a dum-dum with hiding stuff? Sure, but it's harmless. Going against the grain on this one to say not the a-hole. Or just move your food forward on the shelf so it looks full. But yeah, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Man wants one shelf to himself. He's fulfilled the usual AITA demand to communicate and it failed. Instead of the YTAers getting pissy with him, how about his family grant him one simple request? Agreed. OP is so petty. Darn right. Update. Am I the a-hole for no longer bringing dinner for my wife after she claimed I never cook? Original post. I work at a nice restaurant as a cook, and every day when I get off from work, I always cook dinner for my wife and our 2 kids, 8 male and 6 female, at a restaurant before coming home. The only time I don't cook for them are on weekends when I'm off, and that's when my wife does the cooking. We usually trade off who makes breakfast and lunch for the kids every other day, but for the week I'm always the one bringing home dinner. Weekends, we sometimes get together with friends and they come over to the house. My wife usually cooks, and I help set the table/clean afterwards. One of her friends, Stacy, asked how come I never do any of the cooking, and it is always on my wife all the time making meals for the kids, especially when I'm a cook myself. Instead of correcting her, my wife sort of laughed and went along with it, making jokes about, you know how it is. And Stacy laughed because her ex-husband was the same way. And then sort of ripped on me in a joking way, how I better buck up before I became an ex too. My wife just said, well, let's see if he actually listens and starts cooking for once. Joking about all the time I spend in the kitchen at work but won't do the same at home. It really ticked me off. I'm not the husband that just doesn't do anything after I'm home from work. I cook food for her and the kids at work. And on top of that, I make separate dishes for each of them, what she wants and what the kids want. All that after standing on my feet all day. We talked about it once they left, because I don't appreciate being told I'm not doing something she knows for a fact I do. She didn't want to apologize for it because it was all just to be a funny joke. Even after telling her about how it hurt my feelings being put down like that. My wife said she felt like she has to go along with the joke so there wouldn't be any awkward vibes, whatever that means. But I said, fine, if she can't apologize for something that was mean just so she could laugh along with her friends, then I won't keep doing something she already claims I don't do. And for the past week, I've only brought home dinner for our kids, and she's had to make her own food. She's mad that I'm refusing to feed her over what happened, instead of letting it go. But I can't help but feel mad about being made fun of like that, when I'm busting my butt to provide for my family, and still making sure they have food on the table every evening. She just thinks I'm an a-hole for how I'm reacting, when she's already tired at the end of the day, but still having to make food for herself. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Your wife missed a great opportunity to boast on you, all for acceptance by others who have nothing invested in your relationship. Not even to boast though would have felt nice, but at least say, hey, you're wrong, not just go along with it. As a stay-at-home mom who has a significant other who actually does things for himself and around the house, I've basically had this conversation before. All she had to say is, actually, I don't have that problem. He's a responsible adult and pulls his share. I don't get why she had to lie to keep it from being awkward. I'm sure it was awkward already. Not the a-hole. Your spouse is supposed to be your partner in everything in life. The person who always has your back like you always have theirs. She threw you directly under the bus for the sake of not creating waves with her friend. Then when you told her you didn't find her comments at all funny and quite hurtful that she let someone else believe you're a deadbeat, she blew you off. So, she can make her own dinner until she sincerely apologizes and acknowledges that your contribution to the family of cooking dinner during the week is important. I feel like it was an excuse to worry about making waves. I don't understand why actually cooks during the week would create an awkward moment. If anything, it's the opposite. If I was the friend complaining about my horrible ex-husband who never helped, and my friend lied to me about how she can relate because her husband doesn't contribute, I would be pretty angry to find out she actually has an amazing husband who always helps her out. Like, I would be a bit hurt that she decided to lie and act like she's dealing with the same crap I am, when in reality, her husband is doing a lot of work to help her out. Now for the update. At first, wasn't going to post an update, but since things have gotten better, why not? I didn't show my wife this post like some suggested until a few days later, but before that, she wanted to talk before bed. And she apologized for how she's been behaving with me, when she made those jokes and let her friends say things about me, then how she was acting afterwards. In reality, she knew she did wrong, but when I called her out, it made her defensive, and she realizes how she was acting like a child after knowing how much I do for our family. That's when I showed her the post and opened up about something that was mentioned by me in my comments. How it really hit a nerve for me, making it seem like I'm a lousy father/husband when my dad was exactly that as he abandoned me and my mom. She knows how important it is for me to be as involved as possible when our kids were born because I never wanted to be like him. So her making it seem like that's how I am brought up some feelings. Telling her this really made her feel like she messed up big time. She wouldn't stop apologizing. She promised she'd never put me down that way. And honestly, I think she's shown that she meant her apology. For a week, she wanted to be the one making dinner for everyone, so I'd have some time to relax after work. It was nice, but also missed making meals for my family. Cooking for my kids is my own way of expressing my love for them, so we're back to that as well. I feel like my wife has more than shown how sorry she is, and appreciates what I also do for this family. Last time we had lunch with her friend a few days ago on my day off, she even brought it up. As mad as I was when it happened, it's nice to see she's made an effort to make amends. The support I got from here was very sweet. Appreciate feeling heard when it felt like my wife wasn't at a time. I'm really glad things work out for you regarding this. Cooking is definitely my way of showing love to those I care about as well. Keep being a great father, and continue what you do regarding your cooking. Thank you. My family always loved my cooking, so knowing they enjoy something I made on top of keeping them fed is always a nice reward for me. Glad to see another wonderful example of communication and empathy solving the base issue. It's great that your wife was able to understand the underlying reasons behind why her comments were so hurtful to you, since that will help her consider her words before responding in future instances. I think she did a very normal human thing, which is to try to sympathize with the person who's hurting around you by agreeing with her general complaints. It's understandable because you don't want to sound like you're gloating at a person in that situation, but it can also cast a negative shadow on the sad person's recovery. If your wife has trouble with that kind of thing, you could recommend to her that she paint her comments about you as proof that good men do exist out there, if her friends take the time to look for them. It makes you feel good, it makes your wife feel good, and it gives a sad friend hope for a future relationship, as compared to despairing that no man/woman will ever truly love me. I think this is a communication issue. The issue was resolved because the person in the wrong admitted they were wrong and genuinely apologized and made it up to the person they wronged. Oftentimes, things don't get resolved no matter how the two parties communicate, because the one in the wrong doesn't want to admit they were wrong. Did she set the record straight with Stacy? Yes, she did. Good, because apologies behind closed doors are okay. But if her friends continue to make fun of you because she didn't set them straight, that's tough. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my son inconsiderate? I, 46 female, have twins, 19 males, and another son, 16 male. My youngest son loves to cook and bake. To him, it's a source of relaxation. Alfredo, burgers, pizza, you name it. Heck, even a whole cake he can make it. Everyone who's met him knows he's a fantastic cook. However, he prefers to only cook for himself and gets really annoyed when my twins walk in on him cooking and ask him to make them food as well. He'll end up doing it, but he does it very begrudgingly and usually gives them a much smaller portion than his own serving, which my twins don't like. They both have jobs, and will sometimes use their job money to buy us all a little fast food, so they find it really upsetting how their younger brother never returns the favor by primarily cooking for himself. The other day, neither of my twins had class and weren't really in the mood for the food that we had in the house. My son came back from school and decided to make himself some banana pudding. When my twins asked for some as well, he told them they could just make it themselves and that the ingredients were all still there. My son put the banana pudding in the fridge and went to go take a shower while it was chilling. When he came back down, he saw that my twins had eaten it all, and this really upset him. When he told me about the situation, I confronted the twins, to which they said it was really rude for him to only make something for himself knowing that they were hungry as well. And like he said, he could always make some more. So I told my son that while they shouldn't have eaten his food, they were right, and he was very inconsiderate. My son replied that it's not fair how he gets back from school and is expected to make food for his older siblings, that they can just get a cookbook and learn how to make things for themselves. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. He's been pretty moody ever since. Obviously, his brothers shouldn't have eaten his food, but it takes no effort to just make a larger portion of the food he's cooking so that everybody can have it. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but I'm really not happy with how things are right now between my children. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. You're the a-hole. You are not entitled to have your 16-year-old cook for the whole family every time he wants to cook. If this is a hobby that he enjoys, good for him. You and your other children are not an automatic beneficiary. And your twins eat all of his pudding? Major a-hole move. Did you make them make another batch to replace the one they ate? Or did you just let it slide and go on to punish 16-year-old? Give your head a shake. If you want him to cook for you, then maybe you should assign a night of the week that each of your kids be responsible to feed a family, whether it be cooking or bringing home food. Then it's fair. Yeah, or you could make them pay money if he cooks for them. I mean, if it was done in a fair and structured way like once a week, having him cook for everyone wouldn't be an unreasonable chore, given that they'll sometimes buy food and is using a provided kitchen and ingredients. But making it spontaneous and all-consuming, like make them something every time, it looks like she's just playing favorites. You're the a-hole. Why should your twins endlessly benefit from your 16-year-old's work? I hope he gets himself into a professional kitchen and thrives. He's not their servant. Are they doing his laundry? His other chores? Do they clean up the kitchen afterwards? That would be more equitable. What are they doing in return? Do you seriously think them buying something fast food is the same as all the work involved in making a meal? If he finds cooking and baking relaxing, he shouldn't do it professionally unless he really, really wants to. That's a good way to ruin a hobby. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I don't want kids because I'm scared they will turn out like my brother? My older brother is unemployed, had almost always been unemployed, and has no intention to ever work. His life plan is to live off of our mother until she dies. Then our father, if he happens to live longer, then live off his inheritance. Or maybe he will try to mooch off of another relative. I don't know. Our parents have tried to get him to work. They did everything in their power to arrange him job positions where he didn't even have to interview. But no, he always comes up with an excuse to why that job is not good enough for him. He's my brother, so I love him of course, but at the same time, I'm ashamed of him and with how his actions hurt our parents. I turned 30 this week, and we celebrated it with my family yesterday. My mom said she was 30 when she had me and asked me when my husband and I will have kids. I told her I'm not sure if I'm up to the job. Raising children seems too difficult to me. She asked what I meant, and I told her that I don't think I would be able to properly parent a child, correct their behaviors, and deal with them possibly not living up to my expectations, which is not fair to the child either. She pressed further and my father joined in, acting like they don't understand what I mean, up until I told them that I'm afraid my child would turn out like my brother, for example, and I don't think I could deal with that. They got quiet for a second, and I saw that they finally understood what I meant. The problem was that, even though my brother was having a different conversation with one of our cousins, he heard what I said, looked at me, said nice, and walked out. Our parents said that I shouldn't have said what I said, even though they admit they pressured me to explain and understand my concerns, because it's already really hard to get my brother to come to family events, and now I made it even worse, and they want me to apologize to him. I didn't mean for him to hear that, and I feel bad. But seriously, he is a 34-year-old man refusing to get a job. I think it's time we stop cuddling him. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother is a non-functional mooch, unless there is something else going on. Your parents pressed the issue. By the way, they're enablers. It's ridiculous. My brother-in-law was also an unemployed mooch living with mommy from age 35 to 50. I told my husband that the brother-in-law is perfectly capable. Brother-in-law then met a gal who kicked his butt into shape, and he got a job and got married. The enabling is a real problem. Opie's parents did fail her brother, but the brother is at fault as well. It's a phenomenon called failure to launch, and Opie's parents are definitely enabling it by not pushing him out of the nest, so to speak. Not the a-hole. Pure and simple. Your life, your choice. Raising kids is a lot of work. I have 4, trust me. Worst thing for a child is having a parent that's not ready to commit the parent's life to raising a child. Now, if you want a child but simply are afraid of XYZ, let me comfort you. Every child is different. Your parents are enabling your brother, but that doesn't have to be you and your child. It's quite possible you won't have the same challenges with your child your parents have with your brother. Make no mistakes. There will be challenges. 99% chance they'll have their own unique twist in making your life interesting, however. I can concur. All 3 of the kids my parents raised turned out to be screwed up in completely different ways that are combated with completely different strategies. 2 out of 3 of us, despite facing a ton of challenges and having a lot wrong with us well into adulthood, have also found our own versions of success. One of us is a pseudo-Nazi who wriggled out of an arson charge, but part of parenting is accepting that your kid might turn out to be a bad person for reasons beyond your control. Not the a-hole. Is it the US? If so, there's a thing called eviction. Unless he's able to pay for his own food and place to live, he's not really doing anything useful. And I totally agree. Raising kids is a difficult thing to do. Same reason I don't have kids. I just don't want to take that burden. My brother made it clear in the past that if they kicked him out, he would just go to our maternal grandparents who would take care of him. Our parents didn't want to burden the grandparents, so they never attempted to stop providing for him. Then, our grandparents both died last year within a few months from each other. But now my parents believe he couldn't take care of himself and would just become homeless if they kicked him out. My dad especially said he couldn't live with that. He couldn't make his son homeless. I tried suggesting they tell him that they will cut him out of their will if he doesn't get a job. But my dad says that wouldn't work, because my brother would call his bluff.